What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to set some intentions for this week? We got a busy week. As opposed to last week, I had like one thing to talk with you about. I had like six things to talk about this week. We got a couple of planetary ingress. We got a lot of heat coming into the mix to break up some of this water energy. Because I don't know about you, but a little sidebar. Mercury's going to be moving into Sagittarius, and all my Leo placements are looking forward to that. Because man, Scorpio was a and granted we're still the sun is in Scorpio, of course, but Mercury in Scorpio was doing a lot. For me personally, I was the one. So I'm happy for this kind of fire break. Mars is going to be entering into Leo for at least a little while, and then we have a lot of trine energy as well. Some very beneficial aspects that are going on. And even the benefics, Venus and Jupiter are having a nice. Even though it's in an opposition, I feel like it's going to be maybe not what we wanted, but what we needed. So we'll get into all of that here in a moment. But before we jump into that, if you're new here again, welcome. My name is Justin, and one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the celestial chit chat that's going on in the sky, celestial news weekly. And this week I'm gonna be covering, what am I covering? The 31st? Yes, the 31st through the 6th. And let's go ahead and get into this thing. Because on Saturday, which is going to be a busy day, that's going to be the 2nd of November. Happy November. At about 1:21 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, Mercury is going to be forming a trine with Mars, and this is going to be happening at 29 degrees and 21 minutes. Mercury is in Scorpio, and Mars is in Cancer. Now, when we talk about the trine energy, that's the most beneficial aspect that happen between two celestial bodies. It's very kind of Jupiterian in nature. It gives this sense of flow, this new beginnings. And considering that this is happening between two receptive signs, water energy of Scorpio and Cancer, I would say pay attention to any sort of like intuitive nudges that are coming in. As like an example would be with this, maybe you've been noticing there's been some talk around your workspace. Maybe there's been some hints of like, there's maybe some changes that are happening, or maybe there's going to be a corporate shift. So maybe you start like kind of brushing up the resume, kind of put, not that I'm saying this is going to happen, but maybe you end up just kind of like brushing up your resume, putting some things out there, landing some things, or at least getting some conversations. And by the time you get into that, you happen to get the news like, oh, maybe they're going to be doing a merger, and that there's going to be a shrinkage in departments or whatever. You're already like, where people may be kind of like, you're already been taking that intuitive action. And so that could be one way that this is coming up. I could see this too, considering Mars is getting ready to move out of Cancer, at least for a little bit. I would take some time to reflect on how you've look to see where Mars like where Mars has been transiting in Cancer for you, and where you have Cancer in your chart, depending on whatever house system you use, and just kind of reflect on how you've been maybe either proactive and where you've been reactive. And I feel that Mercury in Scorpio can really help you get some deep insights as far as to what's been driving you, what have been maybe some of the things that like maybe you've been dealing with, anger, frustration, fear. And it's like, how do we get to the opposite end of that? How do we get out of this so that we are working more constructively? Because Mars is only going to be in, when he enters into Leo, he's only going to be in there for a little bit before he retrogrades back into Cancer, and we're going to be in more of that Mars and Cancer energy for a little while longer. And that's even where Mars is retrograde is going to be even more tricky. So this could be a great time for just like a reevaluation phase and figure out how you want to move going forward so that you can make the most of these energies. But this is a very intuitive one. If you've been wanting to, even maybe you've been getting a nudge to try like a different, like go try a different course of study, or maybe you get a nudge to go have a conversation with someone, maybe go add someone on social media, or go say, maybe go pitch an idea to a boss, or maybe you want to get into a nudge to start up a business, take a craft or something and make that happen. Trust that, see, or at least explore where that could lead you. Because then a little bit later, At about 12:18 p.m., Mercury is going to be entering into Sagittarius. Now, this is where Mercury, one of the signs where Mercury experiences its detriment, which just means that one of the planets don't operate as well as they do when Mercury's like in Gemini, because that's its opposite, one of the opposite signs that it rules, or especially when it's in Virgo. But I would say this is going to be a different time, I feel, with Mercury being in Sag, because both them and Big Papa Jupiter are going to be a mutual reception, because Jupiter's in the sign that Mercury rules, Gemini, and Mercury's in the sign that Jupiter rules, Sagittarius. So I feel like this is going to mitigate some of that detriment energy, even when Mercury goes retrograde. I feel that even that can be an insightful time for us, just because the both of them are in each other's signs and they're able to provide the resources that they need for one another. I like to think of mutual receptions. Let's say instead of like when they're in their domicile, they're at their own home space. But let's say you're at my house and I'm at your house. Now I can just, like, if I don't know where things are at, I can just call you up and be like, yo, what's going on with your fridge? I remember when I was staying at a friend's place and I could not figure out their faucet for the life of me. And they have to kind of walk me through that. That's how mutual reception can be. And then maybe you're just like, why do you whatever. Why does your bathroom do what it does? I've never worked with a bidet before. So that could be something where I can walk you through it. That's what you could think of mutual reception as. So I feel this but Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign, and their gender is masculine. So there's this active energy that happens with Sagittarius. And I feel with Mercury entering into this place, after thinking about, kind of reflecting on, I feel like whatever happened, even with while Mercury was in Scorpio, now there's this fresh energy. It's like, okay, I got all these insights, all these emotions came up. Now I can use them more constructively. I can, I found where I was getting in a depression, so maybe I need to go do, like, maybe write this thing out. Maybe I need to go get my mind moving. Maybe I need to start journaling these things, or maybe I need to start running. Maybe I need to take a dance class, a kickboxing class. But I find Sagittarius is about taking the energy and expanding it. It's changing things up, doing something different. I would say, for example, I have this, and I just kind of started this when the sun entered into Scorpio. This was like divine timing when I got this. I have these mala beads, like the 108 mala bead things, and I was doing like guided meditations, but now I've just been doing these more so just kind of breathing exercises, and just been getting into, I count from one end to the other and just go around the necklace and just do just some conscious breathing and just trying new ways. And that's been very useful for me personally. So that's where I feel Sag is like, it's finding new ways of moving the energies to expand you. So explore some new things. Maybe you've been feeling kind of in a rut, and now this Sag energy is like, let's get out and explore somewhere. Maybe you're used to driving a certain path. Maybe switch it up. Or maybe if you've been driving, take the public transportation or something like that. Or, if you take if you go on like a certain bus route, try something different. Or maybe go on like a ferry ride if that's available for you. Go out on a bike ride, or try one of those like electric scooters or something like that. Kind of shift it up, be safe and things, of course. But yeah, that's what I feel this kind of Mercury and Sag can really just kind of do things to invigorate the mind and just kind of break up. If you've noticed that even like your social media things have maybe gotten a little stale, you've just been hearing the same old stuff, inviting some new perspectives into your world, I feel could be very beneficial. Now, let's get into Sunday. Because on the 3rd of November, at about 7:25 a.m., the benefics are getting in a conversation. Venus is going to be opposing Jupiter retrograde. They're both at 20 degrees and 16 minutes. Venus is in Sag and Jupiter is in Gemini. Now, I feel with the opposition, you tried this new thing with Mercury, and again, it may not be something that you may have thought would be beneficial. Let's say you started up like a new workout routine, and at first maybe you have been kind of dreading it leading up to it. But I feel when the benefics are even in like a tough conversation, like a hard aspect, like an opposition or a square, it's still going to be for your benefit. So you may try this workout, and you know what? It may not have been as bad as you thought. Maybe yeah, you're feeling a little bit sore, but then that may even invite you to try some yoga then to kind of break up that soreness. And you're like, ooh, I actually like this stretching. Maybe I did. And then like so many things, I feel like this could snowball into a lot of positive things that you at first were really kind of opposed to doing. So I would say let this be a time for you to get curious, to look at the things that maybe you would tell yourself that like, oh, I would never eat, like let's say Indian food, for example. And then you find out that you get to try something, you're like, oh, this is my jam. I love the spices that they're using. What is that? What is that? What spices do they use? I love Indian food, so I should know this, but it's fine. But whatever they're using, maybe you like the spice that they're using, or maybe even playing around with like a different spice, for example. Maybe you're like, I would never. You know what? And I have another great example for you. I'd sent my partner out to get me some seasonings, and he, instead of getting celery seed, he bought me caraway seeds, which are two very different things, and it's fine. It's fine. Apparently, I needed them in my life. And if you're not sure what caraway seeds are, if you've ever had rye bread, that's what's in the rye bread. That's what gives it that rye taste. And so I've been putting them in. I was like, well, I'm not going to throw them away. So I'm going to have to put them in something. And I've been putting them in these kind of like this chickpea flour patties that I've been working with. And you know what? I like them. It's similar to another spice that I tried was like Chinese five spice, and that's a very potent one too. And I use that very sparingly. But I find that it does what it needs to do when I'm looking for that particular flavor. I'm happy that it's there. So that's what I feel this opposition could bring, even just like on a more kind of practical sort of level there, just kind of a grounded way. But this could be again too like exploring we're talking with mutable energy, just doing some things that are different, especially if you've noticed that how you've been doing a certain thing hasn't been working the way that you've been doing. Maybe you've wanted to change the way that you speak, for example. I remember watching something. It was very interesting. This is something I watched like years ago, but it really stuck with me. This guy was saying that you've ever noticed like when you say like like when you find a way to remove that, it makes your speech more fluid and more kind of engaging. So that's something that I've been really kind of consciously working on here, especially here recently, probably over the last year or so, but on and off for probably about 5 years or so. And I've definitely noticed that there is a fluidity, and it gives me a moment to, sometimes you don't have to just fill up the space with stuff. That's a little challenging for me since I have a Gemini moon, but it's like a Gemini energy in my chart. But it does help you think about your words more carefully, I guess, and to appreciate the pause in things. You know what I mean? Just even like right there, and you get to even notice where you have certain patterns that you do. That's even one for example that I've noticed that I tend to do. Just like, you know what I mean? So I'm even trying to get eyes on those types of stuff. So just some examples there. That might be another one. And then later that day, like I said, got some busy days here. And later that day at about 8:10 p.m. Mars is going to be entering into Leo, and I'm actually pumped for that, at least for the little bit that he's there. Because Mars, I find with Mars when Mars enters a fire sign, I feel like Mars, where he does by traditional astrology, tends to do better in like more feminine energies, believe it or not, like in a more kind of in a night chart. But I find Mars, and because I have Mars in Leo natally, this can be a great one to, if you want to set a certain focus, if you want to introduce something in your diet, or if you're wanting to have a workout routine, or if you want to do any sort of like thing that's requiring you to have that focused energy. Mars in Leo is great for that. I do say one caveat with Mars and Leo. is that allowing heat to build up and allowing anger to fest, because Leo can be like an oven. And if there are things, especially with the sun traveling through Scorpio right now, if there's some things that we've been maybe kind of biting our tongue, it's not necessarily just like lashing out, but I would not say while Mars is in Leo, and especially when he goes retrograde, to not let things go unsaid. Just try to get things out of the way. Let's say, for example, if you have, let's say there's a something going on at work, and you're just like, hey, this has been happening and I haven't been appreciating X and Y. Like, is there a way, just going about this diplomatically? Yeah, that's a word. Going about this with some diplomacy, because otherwise, I feel if we leave things unsaid, when Mars moves back to Cancer, and then let's say someone's been kind of pressing your buttons, that heat with Leo may come back, and then that Cancer energy will just react, but react in an even bigger way because we've been kind of holding something there for a while. So where Mars and Leo can be again very, I think, very motivating and very driven. It's like most trades. It could be just a double-edged sword. Mars is known in traditional astrology as the lesser benefic. So Mars is not afraid to stir up some trouble. Mars is always the one. That's especially for those of you who have a day chart. So definitely keep that in mind with this Mars and Leo energy. But this would be great for, I think, doing any sort of like anything that inspires you, any sort of like in creative endeavor, whether you like sculpting, maybe you like working on cars, maybe you like building stuff around the house, maybe you like gardening, maybe you love, making more time to play with your kid. You got a lot of this energy there. We're going around, we're doing the thing. So just having do all that. Just have some fun with this energy for sure. And you know what I also like too, just thinking about that while we're talking about mutual reception, the sun and Mars would be in mutual reception, because the Leo's the sign that the sun rules, and Mars or Scorpio's the sign that Mars rules. So that could be really nice too. Again, pay attention to any sort of things that I feel like if you've been feeling a lot of stuff with the sun being in Scorpio, that can bring some insights for you to help move that energy along, to help channel that into something more constructive, as opposed to just being where we're just receiving a lot and it's just like just sitting in that emotions. You know what I mean? So definitely pay attention to that. Now on Moon Day, the 4th of November, we have we at about 9:36 a.m. the sun is going to be forming a trine with Saturn retrograde, and this is going to happen at 12 degrees and 47 minutes. The sun's in Scorpio and Saturn's retrograde in Pisces. Now, again, with that trine, this is a very beneficial aspect. And Saturn in Pisces has been having us look at wherever you have Pisces in your chart. Oh, and let me backtrack a little bit. Pay attention to where, again, whatever house system you use. Pay attention to where Mars is moving, because either if you use whole sign, he's about, or even like maybe even like equal houses, maybe. Well, that's going to depend too. But depending on whatever house, just pay attention to what signs he's moving between, because if it's whole sign, he's going to be moving to a brand new house, and if it's in any other kind of houses, he's going to be moving into just a new sign energy. So you want, when we have new planetary ingress, especially when we have a couple of them back to back like that, you want to just see what new areas in your chart are being activated. And if you're wanting to work more personally with your natal chart and things like that and these transits, down in the description box below, I have links to book appointments with all the services that I provide. So if that's something that is resonating with you, definitely check that out and avail yourself of these resources. But Saturn being retrograde in Pisces, I feel really has been whenever Saturn's going through a sign, he's wanting us to look at where we have maybe not been as disciplined as we could, where things need to get in order. And I feel too, with it being in Pisces, there's going to be a lot of emotions that may be coming up with this. For if you're like me and you got like Leo rising, this has been going through our 8th house. So this is thinking about our shared resources. That's a house of death. It's a house of, and that's not to say that that's always going to happen. It's, interestingly enough, that's been kind of what's been happening for me this kind of cycle. But That's not always the case. But if there are things like fears and anxieties, since I'm talking about it, if you happen to have that placement, it's about getting those things in order. So if that's thing you've been thinking about, maybe talking with your partner as far as like, hey, what are we going to do in terms of like a will? That may not be the most exciting conversations, but I feel Saturn's motto is if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. And I feel like that's a particular time where you don't want to have to scramble to get ready. You just want to have that time to just be with yourself and to just kind of process that. So that can be just maybe even kind of be a helpful way of approaching this. But I feel with that Sun trining Saturn, this is going to bring up some feelings that you may have been stuck around. Maybe you've been feeling some anxieties around that, maybe getting some fears, whatever that may be looking like. And now the Saturn is just like, hey, you got to move through that. If you've been dealing with anger, this could be a time to again join that kickboxing class, go buy a punching bag, and look up different workout courses on YouTube or different breathing meditations or anything like that. Because if you don't, then what happens is we end up learning the lesson through a harsher aspect, and we learn it where we end up being reactive. And I feel like Scorpio is one that's not going to let things go easily. If Scorpio is one of the fixed signs and will hold on to an emotion for dear life till till. So just be aware of that, and be aware of if there are any things that are coming up. This can be a really great time to just like get stuff in order, because I feel if not, my Saturn's going to be going direct here soon, which I don't, you know what, now that I'm thinking about that, I was doing my notes for this, and did I include that? When does he go retrograde? I'm pulling out my ephemeris. Oh no, we got time. Okay, go. I mean, the 15th. Well, I got to check to make sure that that's in like universal time. Nature, my problem. But just something to pay attention to there. Now, last transit. I know I got a whole mouthful for you. Last one. On Mercury Day, the 6th of November, we have at about 6:31 p.m., Mercury is going to be forming a trine with the North Node. And this is going to be happening at 5 degrees and 50 minutes. The North Node is in Aries and Mercury is in Sagittarius. Now, when we're talking about the North Node, that's considered the dragon's head. And when we talk about the North Node, we're always going to be talking about the South Node because they're always in opposition to one another. In the South Node, you can think about this in your chart or when it's transiting. This is areas where you've been. This is stuff that you're familiar with. So you want to see where this is happening, where this has been happening, because the nodes spend about 18 months in a sign at a time. But the North Node with that trine energy, this is again, this Mercury is, if you're ready to move in a different direction, there's a lot of heat with this. This Aries, you've been wanting this change, and then the North Node is doing the change. And it may not be something that you're comfortable with at first, but you'll get adapted to it. You'll get in the flow of this thing, whatever this thing is, and you'll be able to make, I feel like, really positive growth. Because keep in mind, when we're talking about a trine with either one of them, when it's trining the North Node, Mercury is going to be sextiling the South Node. And sextiles are very beneficial after the trines. They're the next beneficial aspect. And I feel like this is just going to be an opportunity to see, you know what, I used to, like say, for example, you've been working with anger. It's like, you know what, I used to respond this way, but now I'm choosing to go this way. And look how I've grown. You know, I could have definitely gone in that space and just been that person. But you know what, I'm choosing a higher vibration. I'm not choosing to look behind me. I'm choosing to look ahead of me and to continue that dragon's ascension. So I find that this can be a very inspired time for you to do any sort of thing. If you've been wanting to start a business, this can be the time to start getting things in motion. If you've been wanting to ask that person out for lunch, this could be the time to do that. This could be If you've been wanting to book that trip, learn that language, do that thing. But get the energies moving, because we've been in a lot of water energy. There's been a lot of just like receptive energy that's going on. So now we're just kind of, that water's evaporating some. So while we do have some of this inspiration, this invigoration, this invigorating energy that the planets are, and the signs that the planets are moving into, let's make the most of this. And this could be very, very positive, I feel, for whatever goals that you're setting. So, but I think that's all I got for you. Let me make sure I covered everything here. Yup. So, yes, the 15th. Oh, I didn't even have to look in the ephemeris. I got the note right there. At least I know it's fine. But yeah, that's all I got for you. And yeah, again, if you are, and then another thing, while you're checking that description box for my services, if you want to know what's going on with the lunar shenanigans, come on over to my other channel, The Chariot and Friends. I release videos there whenever the moon changes signs, and it's kind of, I'm playing around. I'm doing a little experiment right now, so the times definitely vary there, but definitely come check that out. I talk about what the moon is doing and how she works in that sign, and I also do a tarot card reading there for those energies as well. So if that's something that resonates with you, again, that's all down in the description box below. But until next time, keep raising that consciousness and that vibration through the roof, and I will get you. Oh, where's my mouse go? On the next one, Mercury Day.